and all those good things that we look for on a Friday morning. Good morning, all those type of things. I am Bryan Armentrout with the Food Safety Foundation with my good friend Jose Sabal of Sabal Food Safety Consulting.com. Good morning, everybody. Hope your Friday's off to a good start. How's your Friday doing so far?
Well, I have no complaints, Brian. This last week, I went to teach a refresher training about GNPs and the HACCP principles and so on in client's business very close by. And then I taught an FSSC class for a private group.
Nice. Now, I'll give you a little plug here because I've had the privilege of sitting in on some of Jose's classes. If you want a good teacher, sign up for a class with Jose.
Thank you.
Seriously. I mean, you are one of the best teachers I've seen. So the way your passion, right, which we see on these food safety chats, you just love what you do. So if you get the chance, guys, take a class from Jose. So good morning, Juan.
Go.
LinkedIn user joining us. So today's topic, I think, is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to show our topic for today: third-party audits.
Yep.
Everything. Good morning, Jill. We're going to be talking all kinds of things about third-party audits. You know what? Let's make our pictures a little bigger so people can see our lovely faces. There we go.
Okay.
And so Jill lives in Minnesota, so I can't complain, right? I can't complain about Colorado, right? It was a low of 0 Fahrenheit. So 6 degrees now, up to 6 degrees. And so as Jose and I were talking offline before we started the broadcast, he's in Florida, I'm in Colorado. It's like either you hate being really hot or you hate being really cold, and you kind of pick where you live accordingly.
Well, I can tell you, Brian, that right now over here it's 76 degrees and should be about 80% humidity.
Oh, so you're 70 degrees warmer than we are. Wow. So again, for everybody, what we do is every Friday, Jose and I get together and talk with you about food safety. And again, this isn't a webinar where we're just presenting a bunch of slides and all these type of things and you ask some questions at the end and you're done. This is interactive, right? We pick topics and people give us topics around things that you need to know about for food safety and things that can help you. So we are here for you to answer your questions. So Brandon has joined us, and so he's in Chicago. He's cold too. A lot of cold people.
He's freezing too.
Yeah. So Damaris is down in Texas, so he's going to be okay. Gotta like that.
Well, in Texas, it's a little bit cold.
Yeah, that's true. Depends on where you're at. What's interesting is El Paso, Texas, is west of Denver.
Really?
Did you know that? Yes.
No way.
Everybody's pulling up their Google Maps.
That's amazing.
It is, isn't it? Isn't that weird? Good morning, Yolanda. So of course we are live on LinkedIn, Periscope, which is Twitter, and YouTube, and not Facebook this week. I turned my Facebook off. I turned it off. So I'm mad at Facebook. It's like you go there and you fight with people and it's fact checkers, and it's just like, this isn't fun anymore. Facebook isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll turn it back on for these live streams if people are interested. But for me, it's going, I don't know. So anyway, we have to do our morning drink, right? So everybody,
yes.
Get your favorite beverage. Mine is coffee. Jose prefers a lovely tea in the morning in his pretty flower cup.
Yep.
So join us for a Friday morning drink. We made it through the week, almost. Very good.
We made it.
That's some good coffee. So I'm really liking this coffee maker we got, that Mocha Master. Cool. Have we wasted enough time? Should we actually talk about stuff? I think people.
Our topic today is going to take a little while. I mean, because we have many things that to talk about in third-party audit.
Yes, absolutely. So what's going to be interesting about this is I ran a certification auditing and consulting and training groups with a large company in the US for a period of time. So I got to see the inner workings of how these things work. And that's how Jose and I actually know each other. Is Jose was a contracted auditor who would come in and do classes for us and these type of things. And then he also had his own auditing business. So he's got these things too. Now within and we could kind of talk about some of the rules relative to that around what CB certification bodies can do and things like that. But it's very, very important, Jose, to keep separate consulting and auditing.
Yes.
And we had a really hard line at the company I worked for around that. So let's kind of explain that to people a little bit.
Okay, so actually, when you took that position, I was in the consulting and training division.
Right.
I was not part of the auditing, and it was very clear since I signed the contract with the CB that I can only work for one or the other side. But at the end, because I remember that before that time, I was working for another CB and I was doing audits and I was also training people. So there are certain rules, and I'm going to use SQF for this. If I'm consulting in a company, I'm not supposed to audit in that company in 2 years.
Right.
In order
Right.
to
And
prevent any kind of a bias.
Yep, there's all kinds of rules around that. And it's very important. And really from the perspective of a customer, right? So I ran quality assurance at companies for over 20 years. And I'm the customer, right? I need to make sure that my auditor who's coming in is unbiased, right? The last thing I want is the auditor coming in, writing me up for something, and then saying, oh, by the way, this thing I wrote you up for, I can help you fix that, right? That's a big conflict of interest. Right. That's an incentive for the auditor to write things up because he's trying to generate business. And so that's a big no-no. So that's something as a customer who is looking to have a third-party audit, that's something that you need to be aware of and vigilant about, right? Because that's a strong ethical breach if something like that happens.
Yeah. And then for the, I will say, Bryan, that we should also clarify a little bit what is a third-party audit, because many people use that term kind of a little bit of loose, and nobody, but not nobody, but I mean, some people have a little bit of confusion. What is a third party? What is second party? And what is third party? So for those of you that already have taken auditor training, first party are your internal audits, are the audits that you perform on your own system. Okay, so anytime that you are checking your own system, that is going to be a first party audit. Third party audit, I'm going to skip for a second the second one. Third party audit is when you use an independent scheme and you use a certification body, and the audit, the scheme, is totally independent from you, from your suppliers, and from your customers. Okay, that's third party. So what is the difference between that and the second party? The second party are audits that are performed typically by certification bodies in order to help people to reach certain level. So for example, you have a customer and the customer says you need to be certified, you need to be audited for GNPs. Most likely you are going to contract with a CB. The CB is going to send someone to perform a GNP audit. That GNP audit follows only the checklist of the certification body. It's not a scheme that is totally independent. And actually, all the schemes that we are using right now, they are benchmarked against GFSI. So that's another thing that is different between second and third party. So that is the difference.
Gotcha. What about this is another one. We'll see how you categorize this. So you're a manufacturer and you have a customer. So let's say Costco. And Costco says, hey, we have our own audit that you need to do, and we're going to send in our own auditors to look at your facility. Is that second or third?
That is second.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, that is second. Third party, you need to use a scheme, a standard that is totally independent of the client and independent of the company and independent from the certification body.
That's a very good way to summarize. I like that. So first party is you, right? just you. You
Yep.
got this little square. Second party is you and your customer. Third party is independent body coming in to look at your things.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. So you need a third party audit. So a client comes to you and says, we require you to be GFSI certified if you want to do business with us. And you're not GFSI, right? Global Food Safety Institute, or yeah. So what are the first steps? So I'm the quality manager, Jose, and I just found out from my boss that I need to be third party certified. What do I need to do?
Okay. So, I mean, anyone that is looking to get certified, third party, will need to decide what standard is the one that
Mhm.
is most convenient for them. And I
Right.
guess that if we start talking about this, oh my goodness, Brian, we're going to end up tomorrow, maybe.
Yes,
But I
absolutely.
mean, as a kind of a short version of this, um, there are many different schemes, standards that are benchmarked against the Global Food Safety Initiative. Okay. All of those standards have their own minor details. But look at this, GFSI has something that is called the benchmarking requirements. They call that BR. Okay. The All of the standards that are benchmarked against the um, the requirements of GFSI, they are recognized internationally.
Mhm.
So, for example, BRC and SQF and FSSC and IFS and Canada Gap and Global Gap, and depending on the different, areas of the food chain, that there are codes for each of them. The benchmarking requirements is the guidance, is the key. So,
Right.
any standard that wants to be recognized by that must comply with all of those minimum requirements. They can go above that. So now look at this, and I'm going into the details. So in the past, I was an SQF auditor. I never did a BRC audit, but I passed the BRC storage and distribution training, and I did a lot of FSSC audits.
Mhm.
So one thing that I can tell you precisely is that there is a section in the SQF code that is asking people to. I'm not sure if it's actually in version 9, because Leanne mentioned that there was some, reduction of the code. I need to see that. But in version 8 or 8.1, there was a section saying, oh, you need to take care of your cutting instruments. Make sure that they're clean, make sure that they are not broken, in good conditions, good maintenance, and whatever it is. You are not going to find that in FSSC 22000.
Mhm.
FSSC 22000, there is a section saying it is your responsibility to look for biological, chemical, and physical hazard, and that's it. And it's up to you to find out that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and that's a good
So,
point. I think, yeah, you have to shop around.
yes. So, my point is that reading and understanding a little bit the codes, it's important.
Mhm.
Let me give you another one, Brian. In SQF, you may audit your own job because it says where possible, people should be independent of the internal audits. But
Right.
in FSSC, you cannot do that.
Mhm.
Okay. So there are certain things in those codes, in those schemes, that, some people may say, I prefer to use that one because that specific thing is an advantage to me, or I prefer to use this other one because it's an advantage to me.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, the whole goal is right. You want to pick a standard that is going to satisfy as many customers as possible. So if FSSC only makes one customer happy, but SQF makes 5 customers happy, including that first one because it's all under GFSI, okay, great. You're going to go with SQF, right? So you need to do those comparisons to minimize your damage, right? Because you don't want to have to do an FSSC and an SQF audit, right? That's a whole lot of work. So minimize that if you can. Um, a little bit of kind of how, when people say third party accredited audits, right? That's a different thing. So what's interesting with this is how that works. And so I'll kind of explain that really briefly. So you have a benchmark standard. So in this example, like GFSI, where they have certain rules that they put together, and retailers and other groups have got together who oversee GFSI. And they say, okay, if you want to have an audit standard, here's the rules you need to have if you want us to approve of your standard. So people like SQF and FSSC and BRC, BRCGS, they write their standards to what GFSI is requiring. And one of the requirements under GFSI is it needs to be updated every 3 years, which is why you always see these new versions, at least every 3 years. So then SQF writes their standards and it gets benchmarked back to GFSI. So GFSI says, here's the rules. SQF says, okay, great. Here is my standard that meets your rules. And then GFSI looks at that and says yes or no on whether or not that meets. So we'll say that now SQF standard is benchmarked to GFSI. Well, SQF audits are also accredited audits. So what does that mean? What that means is there's another body that is overseeing the certification body. So there's ISO standards 17021 and 020, where you have third parties who then audit the auditors. So when I ran a certification body, we used an organization, Jazz Hands, which is a accreditation body out of Australia and New Zealand, who then come in and audit me. So they would come in and look at my standards. And so under those ISO rules, I had to have procedures for training, just like you just said, Jose. I had to have procedures for training my auditors. I had to have a procedure in place for complaints if I had customers who had complaints and how I track those and all of these rules. So as a person who is following a standard like SQF, the certification bodies have their rules that they have to follow too. And if the certification body doesn't do a good job, they can lose their accreditation, and meaning that they can't do audits anymore. Their standards aren't good enough. So the certification bodies then have their standard, and then they have accredited certification bodies who are then administering those standards. So as a certification body, I could then be accredited for a bunch of different audits. So SQF, BRC, and all these things. And so when someone contacts a certification body, so MaryU or Silica or FSNet or whoever, there's certain standards that they can and cannot audit to under accreditation. Now, there's also unaccredited audits, right?
Yeah.
I could go out, Jose, I could create a GMP audit if I wanted to and start going around and doing GMP audits, but it wouldn't be accredited, right? There would be no oversight of that, right? So the accredited audits are a higher standard relative to audits. So it's a complicated process, right? And a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't see. So hopefully that makes sense. I mean, it's confusing, right? So if people have questions, please happy to answer those.
Yeah, and actually, that's a very good point, Bryan, because those second-party audits on a regular basis, they're not accredited.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, first, right? You're not accredited to do your own audits, right? Those aren't either. Right.
Yep.
So I'm a manufacturer now, Jose, and so I have decided that, okay, I need to have an accredited audit. Here are my different options. I'm going to go with an SQF audit. That's going to make my customers happy. What's the next step? What do I need to do?
Okay, so in order, and this is my opinion, okay, any other person may go in a different way, but in my opinion, after 9 years auditing and consulting and training people, in my opinion, the most important thing that any company needs to decide on is defining who's going to be the SQL practitioner. Okay.
Yeah.
The code says that this is the person that is responsible for the development and the implementation of the SQL program. Okay. Now, one thing that is going on right now, and it's also part of this accreditation process because you cannot go away from this. Any company in the United States working with food is going to be regulated by the FDA or by the Food Safety Inspection Service of the USDA.
Right.
They both have different regulations with different requirements. Okay. So, for example, the company that is going to be certified they need to fully understand the regulatory requirements. And
Mm.
SQF also, there is a section of the SQF, there is a section in FSSC, there is a section in BRC, there is a section in any of those standards, because it's a requirement of GFSI that the companies, when they are implementing these systems, those systems must be in full compliance with all the laws and regulations applicable in the country of manufacture and in the country of sale. Okay.
Mhm.
So the person that is going to be developing the SQL practitioner needs the training necessary to understand what is a system, how to document a system, how to implement a system, and how to integrate all of the requirements applicable to the operations of the company, including the mandatory requirements and customer requirements. And if the company says, oh, my products are also, for example, kosher, well, where are the kosher requirements to
Yeah.
so I can include those requirements into my system?
Yep. No, that's a
That will
good
be
point,
the
right?
first step in my point. Is the person responsible for this? It's about a team, but that team must have someone that is the head.
Yep. No, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it back to that with the company, right? Because what I refer to this when I train people is I say you need to know the rules of the game. Whose rules are you playing by when you put these together? So there's rules for FDA, there's rules for USDA, there's rules for your customers, there's rules for the SQF standard, right? There's rules for kosher, like you just said, all these different rules. And you need to put together systems that address those directly. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you do that here a little bit later. So you understand your requirements, you've selected a standard. The next step in the process is you need to then select your certification body. Who do you want to work with, right? So you've decided SQF. Well, there's lots of people out there and lots of companies that can do SQF audits. So how do you pick?
Well, again, in my opinion, maybe people may decide to use a different parameter for a different reason. But one of the things that I will think, if I'm the owner of the company and I'm in contact with the person that I selected to be the escort practitioner, and we got together, and maybe other people will got together in that to decide, I mean, how to choose the certification body. Well, I mean, of course, I'm not going to say no. The money is going to be it's going to play a role. So most likely people, may want to request a quote from different certification bodies.
Yes.
Now, one of the things, Brian, that I will say is that people will need to know uh, a little bit about the certification body. Who are the auditors? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
who's the people that they have? Do they have experience? How many auditors they have for my own food sector category? Okay, is the auditor an employee of the certification body, or is the auditor a contractor?
Mm-hmm.
I will say that that is going to be important in making a selection of the certification body. How do you feel? I remember talking with a client one time, and they say, Jose, when I was searching for quotes, I selected this specific certification body because the others never get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about customer service too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're the customer, right? So the certification body is providing the auditing service to you. And so, Juan, we're addressing your question here. So hopefully we're doing a good job here. So how to choose the certification body? What is the criteria to choose, right? So Jose's hitting on some very good ones. So as someone who's managing a certification body, here's a little more behind the scenes type stuff. Is the audit is the product, but the people who deliver it is the important part. And so within SQF, for example, you have all kinds of different categories within SQF. So you have audits for produce and audits for meat and audits for dairy and honey and packaging and all these type of things. So the certification body has to have auditors. Those auditors can be employees of the company, or they can be, as Jose pointed out, they can be contractors, and they can work for all kinds of different certification bodies. They're independent and they're filling up their schedule. Now, the rules say as a certification body, the auditors need to be qualified for what they're auditing, right? Yeah, you want that.
Yeah.
So if I was to apply at a certification body to be a auditor in the dairy category, I can go through that and show my qualifications and take the trainings and get approved. And I also have to do field audits and get shadowed. It's a lot of work to get an auditor qualified to audit. So if I now become a qualified dairy auditor, I cannot do the other categories, right? So part of what you need to figure out then with the certification body is, do they have the people in place to do your audits? So if I come to a certification body and say, hi, I'm a dairy manufacturer and I have 14 plants that are dairy plants under the standard that I need audited this year. If the certification body doesn't have enough auditors to do that, then they can't do that, right? So you need to figure this out. So making sure that the certification body, to your point, is going to provide what you need as a customer. Do they have, to Jose's point, super important, good customer service? Are they walking you through the process? Are they helping you understand how to set up your plants? Are they working with you to coordinate audits? Are they following up when you have questions? Do you have access to technical people in the company to answer your questions, right? You need to look at all these type of things to figure out. And definitely my recommendation here, talk to multiple CBs, right? There's quite a few that you can pick from. So go out there and find the one that is best for you, right? So
yes,
once you do that, the next step is within that is to find, to your point, Jose, the auditor, right? And this is going to be interesting. If you're watching this live or recorded, I don't care. Get a piece of pen, get a pen and a paper, and I want you to write down what I'm going to be talking about here next. If you pick up anything from our chat here today on how to be successful in third-party audits, this is going to be it. So hopefully I've said enough on that. So you now need to pick your auditor. Now, what most people do, Jose, is they leave that to the certification body. And the certification body says, okay, you're now a customer, welcome aboard. We are going to do your audits, and here's the audit dates, right? And as you move forward, you have, depending on the standard, right, unannounced audit and all that type of stuff. We won't worry about that. So you're going to have an audit, and here's your auditor. And you go, okay, really? Is this auditor good for you or not, right? Here's what I recommend doing. Ask the certification body for the resume, the CVs of 3 auditors that they're considering using for your audits, and interview them. Because auditors are people. You have auditors who are very, very good and easy to work with and know the standard inside and out and are going to help you get better. You have auditors, and they're kind of okay, and they'll get what you need. And then there's auditors who shouldn't be auditing you. And it may be something that you pick up in the conversation. So one of the things that I would do as a customer when I ran auditing is I would interview auditors, and I would ask them questions like this, Jose. I would say, okay, you're auditing my plant, and you go into a warehouse area. And this is a back warehouse. It's not being used by the plant. It's more storage than anything else. Nothing in that area goes on the floor. And you walk through this area, and the lighting is not very good, right? You can kind of see what's going on, but the lighting's kind of dim. It's a storage area. As an auditor, how would you approach that? Right? So if the auditor says back to me, oh, very clearly, according to this section and this standard within that, I'm going to write you up. Really? Right? That doesn't make sense, right? Auditors need to understand the
context.
They need to have that context, and they need to have common sense. If the lighting in the production area right where you're making product is bad, yes, write me up. That's a failure, right? I need to fix that. You need to understand the context. And if you only blindly follow the standard, you're not going to help me. You need to understand how that auditor is. And by using that technique, I found through my career some amazing auditors. Auditors like you who do a great job. And when they leave my plants, my quality manager would call me and say, that was a good audit. They showed me things that I didn't realize were wrong in my system, and now I can fix them, right? Everybody gets better, and I'm getting my money's worth out of that audit.
Yes. I remember, Bryan, that when I got into this auditing, third-party auditing world, I was working for one certification body as a contractor. And the guy that was the technical manager at that point was, I still remember him, and he has a very high position of, I'm going to say, admiration from my side. The guy was very wise, very experienced, and I can summarize his lessons to me as, Jose, you need to audit by the intent of the code, not by the letter of the code.
Mhm.
That's exactly what he said. And he was pushing for that, and he was giving me examples. He was great. He was just out of this world. That person helped me a lot understanding what is auditing.
Yep, absolutely. And when you find those auditors, and that's what you're looking for, those auditors are worth their weight in gold. They are amazing, and it's the reason you're doing this whole process. So you need to find them. And the only way you can find them is by seeking them out, right? Because remember, certification bodies have limited resources, right? And odds are, if they have a superstar auditor like that, he's very, very busy, or she, right? Their schedule is booked up way in advance because other people know that they're really good too. Right? So
Yep.
if you have to wait a little bit longer to get them on the docket so that they can audit your plant, do it, right? You
And
need.
I will sorry to interrupt you, Brian, but I will say also something that is very important, because we have been talking about auditors and interviewing auditors and trying to select. We need to make sure that the audience is very clear that you guys are not going to select the auditor. The auditor is selected by the certification body. Now,
Yeah.
you can say, okay, how many auditors you have? Who are they? And I want to interview whomever may come to my facility to perform my audit. That's the case here. It's
Yeah,
something
that's a
that
good
is not selected by the company.
Yep, that's a good clarification, right? Because part of that
Yeah.
right, is you don't want the other side of it, right? You don't want people who go out and pick an auditor who's easy, right? Say, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right? Because that's just as bad as an auditor who is not very good at what they do, right? You want a strong auditor who understands these things. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Actually, to support what you are saying, besides an interview, if it's me, based on my experience, I will say, can I see one or two audit reports of this auditor that is coming here? Kind of to see what this person is putting into the report.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to say that this is an example precisely, but look at this. There is a section in all of the codes that says the company must have a hazard analysis, for the assessment of the hazards of the facility. And
Hmm.
then one auditor may say, yes, they do. Oh, is there a hazard analysis? Yes, they do. And another auditor may say, I was able to observe that the company has a hazard analysis. The hazard analysis has the structure that recommended typically internationally or by the seafood HACCP or whatever is the regulation applicable to that area. They identified hazards and they have a narrative of what they observe for that specific topic of the auto report, and that
Yeah,
is totally different.
they're providing evidence, right? They're
Yes.
proving that what they saw is in place. And
Yeah.
that's a good point, Jose, because let's say, for example, your company has a recall and you have to go to court and Bill Marler is grilling you, right? And he's saying, well, did you have good programs in place, right? Part of the purpose of a good audit is to show that you've got good programs in place. So if the auditor just says, yeah, I saw that, how does that help you, right? You need that audit to show that, yes, here's what we did and here's how we manage the systems and here's the evidence from someone independent of us that we were doing these things, right? So that's super important.
And that goes back, Brian. That connects, that links to that conversation that we have a few minutes ago. The person that is going to be responsible for making sure that this system is properly developed is the one that is going to be somehow responsible to understand which are the requirements and how to develop the documentation. But not only that, in a system, once you have your documents, you need to prove somehow, not necessarily with a test, but you need to prove somehow that the intention is achieved by following that control procedure, and then
Yeah.
train people and then make sure that people is actually performing exactly as written. So the job of the auditor is not just looking at the documentation and say, oh yes, I saw a beautiful document for whatever approved supplier, and then, okay, can you please show me how you approve your suppliers? No, I don't have that. I have the document, but I have not followed that document. I don't have approved suppliers.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the auditor, a good auditor, is going to make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing, right? Oh, yes, we have all these wonderful things. Really? Okay, well, now I'm going to go out and see
Show me.
that you're actually doing this, that the training is there and the GMPs are being followed and all these good things, right? So here's something that I think this is another good piece of advice for people out there is your documentation, right? So Jose is going in as an auditor and auditing your plants. He is asking you a question, right? So, okay, I'm auditing to SQF version 9. 2.2 is talking about document and record control, right? And he's going to ask you questions of what the standard requires. The clearer you are with your answer, the better your audit's going to go. If your documentation is, oh, I've got a little bit on document control here, and there's some over here, and there's some in this document, and oh, wait, Jose, I think I've got some other stuff here I can show you, right? No. It needs to be, yes, here is what 2.2 says. Here is my procedure that outlines exactly what 2.2 is asking for. Here is the recording forms and the training and all of the proof for the auditor that we're doing these things. Now let's go out and observe those behaviors so that you can verify that, right? Plan, do, check, act, right? So as the auditor, it's like, okay, here's the question. Show me that you're doing it. Show me the proof. And what do you do if things don't go right? What is your corrective actions with this procedure? How do you manage all that, right? So the clearer you are on that, boy, your audit's going to go a lot easier, right? The auditor is going to look at management commitment. They're going to look at document control. They're going to go through design control, all these type of things. And if you can answer the questions directly, that auditor is going to be smiling the whole way through the audit because it's clear and it's defined.
It makes a big difference, Brian. When I was auditing and I was saying, how do you do this like this? Do you have a procedure? Here's a procedure. How do you train people? This is how I train people. Can I see, can I talk to this person? And yes, Jose, come here. Look, I can see that there is honesty there. And when auditors see that on a regular basis, you know, the audit goes extremely well. But when I'm seeing, okay, so where is this document? Well, hold on, let me see. And then, okay, let me call someone to see if they can bring the document. And the document is not, I cannot see the document, is not here. And then suddenly I see a record somewhere, and then I'm talking to the person is not clear on what to do. That's a recipe for a disaster.
Right. So very quickly within your mind, you're going, right, you're rolling your eyes and going, okay, not a good system, right? This is not right. It's all about, and this is what I always refer to as telling your story, right? So it's just not your document. So when the auditor asks a question and says, okay, here are the rules for GMPs within SQF. Absolutely, Mr. Auditor. Here is what the standard says. Here's my procedure. Let me walk you through our procedure for GMPs so you understand it. Now let me show you some of the training records. Would you like me to go to HR and we'll pull some random records so that you can see that we're doing the training? For those people, we will now find those people on the floor and you can ask them all the questions you want about training to make sure that we're doing things according to the standard, right? And as an auditor, you're going, yeah, absolutely. Okay, good, right? And to your point, right, that the meter goes a couple different ways, right? So as you go into the audit, you're neutral, right? And as you learn things, it's like, okay, these guys are doing good, right? They understand, they're in control of the standard, they're meeting it, they're showing me what I need, or the other way, right? Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay, these guys are not following the standard. They don't understand what it's asking for. They're scrambling for documentation. They don't know what's going on here, right? I'm going to dig more, right?
Yep.
Because clearly I found something, and auditors are like bloodhounds, like they will go down that trail. If they find something that doesn't look right, or documentation that's funny, or these recording forms look like they were made yesterday, they're going to dig. And once they start digging, they're going to find stuff, right? So you want to make sure that things are presented in the proper way.
Yep, that is 100 correct. We have someone asking a new question there. One
Yes.
thing that I'm going to add, Brian, if you want to keep on read the question, but I'm going to say this to the audience, guys. Uh, it is a fact that the SQF practitioner is going to be the lead. That
Mhm.
is the person that will have the basic training, whatever. But you do not set up a food safety system, no matter if you're using SQF or BRC or FSSU, whatever is, alone. So if everybody at the company understand that this is the responsibility of each and every single person, it's just not going to work.
Right.
Okay. And exactly this, what I'm saying right now, the intent behind what I'm saying right now is the food safety culture, which, by the way, is now part of all of the GFSI standards,
Yes.
is the responsibility of each and every single person. So for that, and it depends on what is the timing that the company decided to use to comply with all of the requirements, it is very likely that senior management is going to provide resources to hire a consultant to help the SQF practitioner and the team to develop this program.
Yep, absolutely. And that is a big part of what Jose and I do in our businesses, is helping people get ready for these type of things and put those programs in place so that you can show compliance. But Jose, I'm thank you, because you brought up a very important point here, right? If you're just creating documents and programs to make an auditor happy, you've missed the point, right? This needs to be how you run your company. This is how we manage food safety. This is how we train everyone. This is how we do allergens, right? The SQF practitioner is just the facilitator, right? He's the tour guide. He's showing what's going on, right? This is everybody in the plant.
Yeah.
One of the things when I would tour plants and visit my plants or whatever is, and this was especially true if this wasn't one of my plants. So say I was going to a supplier or something like that to visit them. And I would go out on the floor and I would watch the people. And if the people were engaged, right? So what I mean by that is they would look up from what they were doing and they were watching me, or they would say, "Hi, who are you? What are you doing here? Can we help you? Would you like to know what I'm doing?" Right? They were interested in what I was doing, right? That was a big indicator for me of good culture, right? Because the people were
Yeah.
involved and engaged. If, on the other hand, I go into the plant and everybody is, right, head is down, right, they're doing their job, they don't want to talk to me, they want me to go away, right? That's a bad sign, right?
I can tell you a few stories about that.
Mhm. So here's another good tip for people, is write this one down too. So we have a standard, right? That's the rules of the game, right? So we'll say we're doing SQF, and you come to a section of the standard, and let's say it's calibration, and the auditor is going to write you up for something and you disagree. You're like, no, the standard says this. Here's my procedure that I do. Here's the evidence that I did it. I don't see a non-compliance. And the auditor says, no, I'm writing you up here. I'm giving you a minor because of this. And you disagree. Guess what? Call the certification body.
Yes. Yes.
Every certification body has what they call a technical manager. That's the person who knows the standards inside and out. They're responsible in some places for the auditors. They attend all the meetings. They know everything. These guys are super geniuses when it comes to these standards. They know everything. Call and talk with the certification body and say, hey, listen, I have an auditor here, Joe, and we're going over this in our audit, and we don't see eye to eye. Let me explain to you our two different sides, and then help us out here to reach resolution. And the certification body can look at the evidence and say, no, the auditor's right. Here's why he's making this point, and you do deserve a minor for this. Or the other side could be, no, the auditor is a little out of scope on this. We agree with you. Your procedure looks good.
And actually, there is another outcome, Bryan. Oh, the auditor is raising a minor nonconformity, but because now, with what I'm seeing right now, no, it's not a minor, it's a major.
Yeah.
Or maybe the auditor is raising a major, and the outcome is going to be, well, you know what? You're right. It's not a major, it's a minor, but that's an option.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The goal here for both sides want an accurate interpretation of the standard, Because what happens after the audit is the audit goes back to the certification body for review.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
then the technical manager takes what the auditor did and then looks at the standard and says, okay, does everything match up? Did he write up things in the right areas and all these type of things, right? Because auditors are just like us, they're people, right? And there may be a disconnect there. And the more that those can be corrected before they get to the technical review, the better, right? It makes everybody's life easier.
Yeah. Yep. And actually, Brian, what you describe is not just about the technical manager. It's called the technical reviewer. There is
Yeah.
someone that is going to be checking that each and every single area that must be filled is filled, that whatever is written there makes sense, that is, more or less properly written, and so on. And that's it.
Yep. Absolutely, right? So as you're going through the audit process, right, and then you have your closeout meeting, right? Now, this is the great time to make sure that everything is really, really clear. Because odds are you're going to have some things, right? If the auditor's good, he's going to find some things that you can do to improve your systems, right? There's some things, okay, you got a minor here, you're not quite meeting the standard and things like this. You need to understand what the auditor is saying. Because sometimes just reading what they wrote, you're not quite clear because you need to close those things out. And the auditor is the person that you're working with to close those out. Now, if it's like physical things, a lot of times that's really easy. The auditor says, hey, I was in the warehouse and I found a window in the back that's cracked. You need to replace that. Okay, you know what to do, right?
And make sure that during that closing meeting, not only understanding what the nonconformities the auditor is raising, but understanding that the auditor should not be double dipping.
Yeah.
Very important.
Right. So what Jose is saying there is right is all standards are interconnected. And so you have information in different areas that talk about different things, right? Training involves everything, right? So if he's writing you up for training under a procedure, they really shouldn't be doing that again and double dipping and causing you another minor nonconformity 2 times, right? You only get hit once. Now, if the auditor finds systemic problems, that's different, right? So let's say, for example, the auditor is finding through your entire system failures, right? And minors here and minors here and minors here. That auditor may come back under 2.1, right, for your food safety culture and your management commitment and these type of things and say, wow, okay, based on everything I'm seeing, this is not a good system. I'm going to give you a deduction for that.
So, I mean, there are so many different things. It is possible that if you observe something in detail, and I'm telling you this, for example, I'm going to find in my walk through the company that, and this is very typical, I'm going to use this on purpose. On all of those electrical boxes hanging to the wall around the building, I don't know why, but they are perfect place for people to put, paper, plastic, bolts, nuts, pencils, and you name it. It's everywhere. Okay. I'm not supposed to say, oh, you have a minor here and you have another minor there and I have a minor there. I'm supposed to grab all of them, and by the intent, I'm going to grab and identify what is the best place in the standard and group them all and put that as evidence. Okay.
Yep.
But on the other side, look at this one. So I remember auditing a company, and then I said, I want to talk to the person that is responsible for cleaning and sanitation. When I was talking to that person, I said, okay, do you have written procedures, SSOPs for your cleaning activities? And he said, yes, we do, Jose. You see all those binders there? All of them contain our own written procedures. And I said, I selected 2 pieces of equipment, and I say, I want to see the written procedure for those 2 pieces of equipment. He went straight to where the place where they have all the binders, and he pulled those binders by reading on the back of the binder. So in my opinion, when I saw that, it was extremely well organized, and this guy was very knowledgeable about the location of all those documents. So that was a good impression for me. But he brought the binders back, he put them on front of me, and he switched the pages, and he showed me a page that was kind of a yellow, dated 1963, 1968, 1971. That was the date on those
Oh,
documents. At that point, I quickly switched to the verification and reviewing of those documents. Who
mhm.
reviewed these documents? Are they still current? Because it was too old. I'm now
Yeah.
not concerned about the actual procedure. I'm concerned about the effectiveness of that written procedure because it's too old.
Yeah. So,
So he
so,
said,
so you knew it up, and then it went.
yes. So I said, oh my goodness, this is very old. Have you checked this document? Of course, Jose, I check that each and every single year. And I say, can I see evidence? And he showed me one piece of paper with the names of all of the different binders. And you can tell, because at certain point as an auditor, you can tell when you have pencil whipping and there
Hmm.
was a signature and a name. And I said, okay, so based on this document, you review all of those binders in one day alone. Is that possible? It's not going to work. So at that point, I raised a nonconformity against maintaining documents up to date. I raised another nonconformity about the effectiveness of the document because one of the chemicals that was in the procedure is not being used anymore. It was a chemical used in 1960 something or 70 something, not right now. So I raised two different nonconformities with reason.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And well, the good news is they've got good bones in place. Right now, they just need to take their system and update it. Right. And
Yeah,
clearly, though, they weren't using the system then to manage their business if it was that out of date, which is too
yeah,
bad. Because the whole point of these systems and putting these in place is to run your business, right? It's not to pass an audit; it's to run your business. So let's see how we're doing here on questions. Let's see. So a question here from Pedro: what's your opinion about if a COA can be a preventive control?
okay. So, well, our topic is about schemes and audit, Pedro. But one thing that I can tell you is that one of the options to verify that one of your suppliers is doing a good job in the manufacture of one of the ingredients, that one or more of the ingredients that you're receiving, is setting up verification activities. You're going to be verifying that they are actually controlling whatever is that hazard. One of the options is sampling and testing. That's given in the FDA regulation. And for sampling and testing, you may request COAs from your supplier. Now, keep in mind, and this is from my own class when I took the preventive control for human food, train the trainer. If you decide to do that and the certificate is coming from the same facility that is selling you the product, there is a potential bias there. So,
Mhm.
besides receiving the COA, you should also set up your own private testing and compare that COA with your own test to verify that is accurate.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, I would throw into that. It's going to be dependent on your hazard analysis, right? So, if
Yeah,
you have risky materials, you need to pay more attention to those. So, you may
yeah,
need COAs, you may need third party testing, you may need pre shipment samples, whatever is
yeah.
that you need within your system based upon that risk. So, wow, Jose, time flew.
Time flies.
Wow. Right. So obviously, yeah, this is a topic we love. Great question, guys. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Of course, right? You have our emails here, and if you have additional questions or things that you thought about, you're seeing this show recorded after we were live. Please send us messages. Right. We love talking about and helping companies with these things and putting good food safety programs in place. To kind of summarize all this, right? This is a interaction, right? There's an interaction between the customers and the people that are doing the auditing and the programs and systems you have in your plants, right? And showing and
Hmm.
developing those things to run your business and being able to show compliance with other people who are interested to make sure that you're doing the right things too, right? It's all about this big web that we have of food safety, right? So it's very
Yeah,
important to build out those right systems.
yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And at the end,
So
you know what, Ryan? I'm going to summarize my part. It's
yes.
about commitment. It's about engagement. It's about having the right attitude. It's about the culture.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And being proud and showing and being, you know, having that ethic associated with doing that and really showing that, right, is super, super important. But great conversation as usual, Jose. And thank you everybody for attending with us and making this interactive, because this isn't any fun unless we've got this interaction with people. And we know that we're providing value and things that are helping you get better too. So please continue doing this with us. We love it. So again, we are live every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Sorry about this, but 7 a.m. on the Pacific Coast, 8 a.m. in Colorado where I'm at. So once again, we'll see everybody next week and we'll talk about our next topic. Oh, if you want to talk about something that is on your mind, send us a note. Let us know what it is that you'd like to have us talk about on this food safety show. We love doing that. So once again, my little thank you note to everybody, and have a great weekend. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you, Bryan. See you, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.